So, Land of the Lustrous is a nice looking show. It's got, I think there's a point somewhere in there. The it has themes and stuff. Who? What the fuck are you supposed to be? What? Hey man, I didn't tell that to their faces. I just made a silly video. That's not fair. I had. But I. I'm gonna spoil all this and shit. There's plenty of videos talking about how pretty Land of the Lustrous is. And yeah, they're right. It's a quality CG picture show from Japan, and that is a rarity. But I feel like too many people have glossed over the character writing of this show, particularly how the mechanisms of the world cause the characters to change. The character who changes the most throughout the series is, of course, Phospholite. Foss, we're gonna go with Foss. She starts the series as, in a few words, a little bitch, but she's cute about it. She'll get all up in your face about anything that remotely bothers her, even if she has none of the strength to back that up, unlike the show's other, less cute, butchier bitch, Bort. As a sidebar, I'm using feminine pronouns, but in Land of the Lustrous, the gem people don't have genders. But the anime portrayed them with primarily feminine characteristics, so I'm taking this liberty because it's easier to refer to the characters with these sorts of terms, and it's easier to understand. I'm aware they're more androgynous in the manga. That doesn't really matter to the point I'm making here. Moving on. As among the weakest of her people, Foss literally breaks to pieces upon the lightest force. It's no big deal though. The crystal gems in this show are effectively immortal. So long as all the pieces are present post-shattering, any one of them can be put back together and retain their sense of selves. But if one of them loses a piece, they also lose random portions of their memories. Pieces must be replaced by something else, and the new replacement parts can be of slightly different compositions to meld with the characters in question, changing their own physical capacities. Could it be that this is ingeniously used to drive how susceptible a character is to harsh changes in both their physical appearance as well as their own personalities and mental outlooks? Well yeah, that's what this video is about. But I'm not going to sit here and analyze the exact particulars of what changed about Foss in this analysis though. Presumably, you saw the show. You know that the character of Foss at the beginning of the show is a different person than the one at the end. What's interesting here is how the series plays with a specific motif to convey and discuss these changes. Foss doesn't just become more responsible and reserved because she's learning how to be these things. She is put through trauma, and on the other side of that function of torture is the person Foss becomes. Yeah, a character growing through trauma is basic. Almost every story with violence at least has that as a theme. But again, I'm talking about how this show does it specifically by defining how memories as an object of this universe work in the context of an immortal being that stores its memories uniformly and randomly throughout its physical body, and has no real need for many parts of that physical body to function, and strictly speaking requires none of them to survive. Over the course of the series, Foss is pressured in more ways than one to grow as she comes to learn about the nature of the world around her. This is almost entirely symbolically and literally represented by, well, this. Take the first time we see Foss break. You might think that isn't all that important, and that I'm grasping at straws for examples of symbolism in Foss's breaking, but if you've seen the show, you'd know that Foss breaks all the fucking time, and this example, as well as the first few examples, aren't terribly good ones for this purpose. But it's important that the first couple brushes with loss aren't too consequential, because we're being taught something about how things work in this world here. Foss doesn't actually seem to lose anything of value from her first couple shatterings, because these events and her reaction to them informs us of what kind of character Foss is. Later, it will inform us on what kind of character Foss is becoming. It's important to note here that Foss wants to change, because she wants to be able to save others from danger and she wants them to be happy, despite her initially bitchy and selfish demeanor. Before we keep talking about Foss though, let's talk about Diamond. Daya, as she's called in the series, is paradoxically one of the hardest gem people, but she's very similar to Foss in that she views herself as entirely worthless in the face of more capable gem people like Bort, who is both as hard as Daya and much more durable. Daya's attempts to change, to make up for her perceived weakness and inadequacy, result in her essentially breaking herself. Bort doesn't allow this, and so the status quo is maintained. As Foss continues to change, at Daya's own suggestion, we know that Daya becomes more conflicted with this. I'd go so far to say that she is jealous of Foss's change, especially when Foss temporarily pairs up with Bort. Daya and Bort maintain this silent conflict until Daya is essentially forced to fight Shiro, the Buddha dog thing with 6 arms. Daya is driven to breaking most of her body in the ensuing battle. This enables Daya and Bort to be more forward with each other, resolving the conflict between them. Granted, I don't know if this conflict returns later on, since the anime only covers a portion of the manga, but given we saw an arc open and close with these characters, I assume we're done with it. I brought this up because this is another example of trauma causing things to change, which informs us that this idea is not specific to the series' protagonist. In this case, it was primarily symbolic since Daya was able to be totally reconstructed, but I still find it thematically poignant because Daya risked total loss in service of her goal. Daya and Foss work as seamless foils for each other, as their personalities and status in Crystal Gem society are polar opposites, but they feel pretty similarly about their bodies and risking themselves to help others. The first time we see Foss lose something tangible is when Foss loses her legs when she is betrayed by the Sea King. When she returns with new legs, we see that she has forgotten Jade, one of the supporting characters who had enough screen time that most people would probably feel at least a little bit of a sting when it happens. This is the first time there are real physical and mental consequences for Foss's loss. What happens afterwards, though, is that Foss obtains new legs and able to move faster than she can reasonably handle at first. She also loses the only job she's ever had assigned to her up to that point, but gains a new job as support for combat gem people. However, we're quickly shown that this change isn't enough to help the others. She personally witnesses the pair she was assigned to, the Amethyst twins, crushed horrifically. This gives her anxieties that will hasten how much she will change, and how much she will lose. Her most important physical loss occurs when she loses her arms. However, when she gains new arms with the potential power to make a difference, she still cannot save anyone. This time, there's nobody to make the situation right, and Antarcticite is taken. Her most important loss is not her arms, but rather Antarcticite herself. The loss of her arm just reinforces the psychological trauma losing this friend of hers has caused. All of this triggers Foss's most pronounced change in the series. She becomes much more serious and reserved in the face of the trauma she has faced, personally witnessing several companions shattered and one successfully stolen because she was not strong enough. She no longer complains about overbearing duties and does them in spite of herself. The master even comments that she should rest, and she turns on the opportunity without hesitation. She has physically lost so much of herself, roughly 20 to 40% of her body if her mass distribution is roughly equal to that of a human being, that the person she is in the present is almost completely different than the person she was at the start of the series. Moreover, she recognizes that fact. In perhaps one of the most poignant notes of the series, she watches winter roll back and life reappear on the island. She comments that the pace at which living beings change is frightening, to which the master responds that she is no different. She in turn acknowledges this, and doubles down on how scary it is, and she's right. Has anyone in your life suddenly changed for better or for worse? If you're at least 18, my guess is you've encountered this on some level. The degree at which someone's personality can change can be very harsh, and more times than not the change is completely understandable. Likely the person who changed is going through something. If it's a big change, I'd bet they're going through something big. It's a simple concept, but one that goes overlooked by many people. That this show was able to convey that message so poignantly with being so different than us, yet so similar, is why I really think this anime is fucking dope, visuals aside. Actually, the visuals are pretty good, and I don't mean to undersell them, but come on guys, there's more to these things than just what looks pretty. I'll be dropping another video soon, which, when it's up, I'll link here. It'll be covering my other thoughts on the show. Shit like its aesthetic, and some more general points, and maybe even a couple criticisms that are just too short for their own individual videos, but together make up a solid 10 minutes or so be on the lookout. If you thought this video was great, consider dropping me a buck on Patreon. I'm a full-time student who have to start looking for a real job soon, and any money I get from this will help more videos come out faster. If you didn't like this video that much but still thought it was alright, you can expect more and better content in the future as I figure this shit out. So, maybe subscribe. Ring that bell while it still works. Drop a like. Share with me your intimate secrets about Lost in the comments. I won't tell nobody.